Welcome to Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers, a podcast for women of color and first gen who are breaking generational cycles and glass ceilings by going places no one before them has ever gone. I'm your host, leadership coach, and eldest daughter of immigrants, Mariela de la Mora. I left a 16-year marketing career to create a multiple six-figure-a-year coaching business as a single mom. Each week, you'll learn how to build unshakable self-trust, become in demand, lead with confidence, and make more money by being more of who you are. Hello, everyone. So this week, I am joined by my client, Patti Dayleg, and I'm so excited because we're going to be talking a lot about not only how Patti was able to double her organizational contracts this year as of May. So as of May, doubled organizational contracts versus last year, but also just talk about working with organizations in general. As a coach, what does it look like to land contracts through organizations, which is essentially B2B, like business to business, versus business to consumer, working with individual clients? What does that actually look like? What does it look like to coach? What does the opportunity look like? All of that I think is important for us to have a different example of what it could look like to coach. So Patti's going to share what that journey has looked like for her. And yeah, I'm just so excited to to share a different example of success as a coach and what that could look like. So Patti Dayleg is a leadership coach and she is the CEO of Malaya Solutions. She is a first daughter of Filipino immigrants who helps BIPOC-led organizations and coalitions to sustain their movements. She's collaborated with over 100 leaders in movements focused on sustainability, climate change, health education, food justice, and immigrant rights. Before founding her coaching company, Patti dedicated a decade to securing 6- and 7-figure opportunities for BIPOC communities. Most recently, she was one of Broadway's first directors of equity, diversity, and inclusion, which I think is so awesome. And also, a lens that she's brought into her work. And in her free time, she is a yoga practitioner and a mom to her French bulldog. We're recording this in person together in Oakland. She's here to visit. So I'm so excited. This is my first in person. So welcome, Patti.
Yay, welcome to me.
Yeah.
Welcome to us. Welcome to this space.
Yes.
I'm so excited to be here with you.
I'm excited. And this is like the first time we're meeting in person, because even though you joined Reclamation and we kicked off in February, you were actually at an event and you were coaching that weekend. And you told me back in December when we had our discovery call. So I was like, oh, but you still should join, even though you were literally coaching that weekend and you couldn't make it. So I'm so excited that we got to meet in person this time, which was so good. But I was like, we were going to make it work one way or another.
Absolutely. We're definitely going to meet in person. I will say though, when I joined, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get to connect with everybody. I still feel super connected to everyone.
Yeah.
And there's people who are from the mastermind who are meeting us after this recording.
Yes.
And I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
But not getting to be there in person was sad, but also not that much of a hit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that it felt that way. I definitely felt like from the beginning, I wanted it to feel like, regardless of whether someone was able to make it to an event, that the community element, if it's created on purpose with opportunities for people to get to know one another beyond the surface and what do you do, will naturally lend itself to people getting to know one another. I'm glad that it felt that way and that it was received, because I think that how masterminds kick off or any kind of group really dictates how people feel in it and the connections that people have. So I'm glad it felt that way. We're actually going to meet with someone else in the mastermind who I haven't gotten to meet in person, Carmen. So I'm excited for all of that. What we want to do, the way that I want to talk to you and have you share with us, is to start with your mastermind experience and what you've been able to do this year, and then kind of transition into what does it look like to be a leadership coach within organizations? How did it start? The learnings from that. So then the second part is really just about your experience in it. And I think that a lot of folks can learn from that or just dream differently as a result. So I wanted to start just by opening up with, give us some context into what was behind you coming into Reclamation. You had the goal at the beginning of the year of like, you wanted to grow the contracts, like your organizational contracts. You already kind of knew a little bit of what your opportunities were there, like what was getting in the way. And I know one of the things that you mentioned was like, you really want to, number one, see yourself as a CEO, like the identity of a CEO, like business owner. So tell us a little bit about what was behind you so far landing twice as many or twice as much in terms of value, the monetary value of contracts this year. What was behind that? What was behind you getting here? Because I know circumstantially there was some stuff, but like the internal shifts, like I would say.
Yeah. So if I think back to, what was it, December of last year?
Yeah.
I had been in masterminds before, and I had been in coaching programs that were specifically tailored towards women of color. But there was some elements that were missing. And so the mastermind that I was in was with 6-figure coaches, but that actually was missing the like first generation. That was missing the women of color element. And then in the group coaching program that was around women of color, it was actually, I was seeing more coaches who were like more at the beginning of their journey. And so it was very much like the challenges that come up for you at the beginning of what's my niche. Like that for me was such a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so your group, your mastermind Reclamation, was the first one that I had seen kind of like a higher level of coach being attracted.
Yeah.
And the community that gets built around that.
Yeah.
And so that's really what made me decide. The other part of it, selfishly, is that I was like, I really want to find my like business besties, you know? And I've had experiences where like I am close with other coaches from other programs, but none who have quite the same challenges as me. It's just a different experience.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, that community was super, super attractive.
Yeah.
And so many moms. And that's something that I'm planning for. I'm not currently a mom, but like it is something that I'm planning for in the next year or so.
Yeah.
The other thing that attracted me as well is that there were so many people who were continuing in the mastermind.
Yes.
And that to me, I was like, I want something that I'm going to stay in for the long haul. Like I want a coach that I'm going to have a long-term relationship with, who's going to know me as a person outside of what are my offers. And so those are all the things that got me to say yes, take part in the workshop and sign up and all of the things.
Yeah.
And once I was in, the shifts that were created, the community is absolutely it's what, like it's definitely what I signed up for.
Yeah.
Like there are folks who I am speaking with regularly, who I'm like running things by, and like we're just like shooting the shit also. And so the community absolutely is such a benefit. And in terms of my identity as a coach, I think something that I articulated just recently is that I am a leadership coach for social change.
I love that. And you have been.
And I have been.
Even before, but bringing that into your work.
Yeah. Right. And I haven't been able to say those words.
Yeah.
But the reason why I think I was able to articulate it was because there are other women who are in the mastermind who do similar work. And that is, I have not seen that before. I have never seen.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think that I know I've observed it, but I think this round, due to the number of people, I looked and I was like, it isn't just a fluke because there's so many coaches who have a background in like social justice and like working in nonprofits. There's a big element of like social justice, social change in the mastermind. So it's almost like the conversations get to be, you're not going to be like the odd one out there. It's almost like everybody in there is doing this like very mission driven work and all of that. So that was the thing that you reflected back to me where I was like, no, that wasn't just a fluke. Like that actually magnified across the board.
No, exactly. And I will say like the last mastermind I was in, it was amazing, but like I was the only person doing this. And so I got a lot of like pats on the back for my work, which I'm like, great, but also it's not really what I need. You know? Like people don't see beyond, oh my God, you're doing amazing work, to like actually thinking about the mechanics. And I think that is also something that's really powerful is we like, yes, there are people who are in the mastermind who are doing that, but we're all doing it differently.
That's true. And I think even having examples, I feel like even you all show me that too, of what are the different ways that coaching and consulting and facilitating and workshops and all of the ways essentially of serving people of color, because I think that's a big underlying focus in the mastermind is folks are working with other marginalized people, that it takes the form of, it takes so many different forms.
Yeah.
It isn't just like going on social media, landing individual clients. Like there's a big element of like how this work can take different packages, which is something that I love that you all can model that for one another and to have a space where that can be modeled as well. So it's like, it helps people to dream differently. And I know that there's also been a lot of like connections in the mastermind as well around like my organization needs someone or literally bringing somebody in to do that work.
Yeah, just the other day, I actually sent someone to one of our mastermind sisters. She's my coaching client, but she needs help in another capacity. And so I was like, oh, I actually know someone who does this, and sent her to Rosa.
I love that. Yeah. And so that's the thing is, it's almost, I don't want it to feel like you're the only one doing this work or that it's such a small world. Cause I just think like in that, having the other people who are doing that similar work to connect one another, to be like, oh, I know someone, keep them in mind and all of that is so powerful. And I know you all have been doing that for each other, which I think is amazing. So with that, what would you say are like the identity shifts and maybe even some of the like strategic changes or things that were behind being able to land more org contracts? A couple of things that you had named to me were around, number one, like owning that you are a coach for organizations for social change versus comparing yourself or seeing yourself as someone who sells to like individual people. And then also just like the way that you value your work. Tell me a little bit about that, like the way that you value your work. I'll just leave it to that because I know you had a kind of a whole like shift behind that.
Yes. So when I joined Reclamation and all of last year, and I went full time in my business in 2023 after being laid off and after being in a world where I was doing social change work in different capacities in different organizations, different industries for a long time, and then decided to go full time in my business. But I had like parallel tracks. My first day of coach training was also my first day of working at a DEI job in government. And so these were happening simultaneously.
Just seeing like your experience actually started before you were maybe seeing it before, which is, I think, is an important part of like your expert identity is like giving yourself more credit to be like, are there things that I'm discounting because they came in a slightly different package, but it's no, your expertise as a coach began before you were maybe seeing it before.
Yeah. And I think the shift is actually the integration of those identities. And not just like seeing them as like parallel tracks anymore. That like I bring my coaching into my organizational work. My organizational work is my coaching. And I think one of the things that I'll share later is that a lot of my organizational contracts are with teams. Like I have one that's with another coach. I have another where we have a coach and we have an evaluator for the program. And then we have like kind of advisors for the program as well. I came into these contracts initially with like my coach hat on. And I was like, I'm just a little coach. And I was like, I'm just going to lead people through their individual change. But in doing that work and in being in Reclamation and having to do success receipts, having to like really own, or like not having to, but like practicing owning those successes and like really identifying, no, this is actually what I contributed to this. That is a huge shift because then this next round of renewals for my contracts, I was able to double them because I was able to say, no, this is the contribution that I am making. I'm not just, quote unquote, just a coach. That like my coaching with folks, especially people who are in particular decision-making positions or are in like empowered positions when they are coached by me, that shifts their entire organization.
So this is what it's lending itself to me as you're sharing this, is you're valuing your work differently because you're not just seeing, I'm just coaching individuals. Like it's part of what you shared in your success receipts and just like things in coaching is like the impact that your work has. that it's organizational wide impact, not just like the time that you're spending like coaching somebody.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about like when you did Success Receipts as a tool in Reclamation Mastermind for those of you who aren't familiar with it. And essentially what it is that it is a data collecting process where you are looking at the actions, the beliefs, the mindsets that contributed to your success. So in that, rather than an entrepreneur pointing their successes to a framework or like changing what's working, what I want you to do is actually, it's an audit. So just like in business, it's an audit of how was this result created in mindset and in action. So tell us, what were some of the things that came up when you did Success Receipts as far as this is what has worked for you that you could continue doing that?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is really important because I learned that in human design, I'm a 6'2". And the 2 line means that there's like a hermit energy, but the other part of the 2 line is that it's hard for us to see ourselves.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so something like a tool, like a success receipt, where we're actually forced to reflect on what were the things that you what were the actions that you took that led to this? What were the beliefs? What are the things that you had to let go of?
Yeah.
Those pieces were really helpful because I think something that I wrote was, I forget that my work is extraordinary. Like, it just feels normal to me.
Yes.
It feels normal.
You said my work is extraordinary, or you said something like, I forget that my work is extraordinary because it comes easy, or it was something along those lines. So it was almost like giving yourself credit for your gifts.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing about gifts is that like they're gifts, right? Like
you're just like, oh, am I even
naturally
doing anything?
Right. And so it also made me reflect on just what are some of the words that my clients have shared as well with me.
Yeah. Because that was one of the processes we did too, is we gathered client language at the beginning of the mastermind, so that essentially we're doing a lot of like auditing and data capturing and evidence capturing. So with data capturing, evidence capturing, you're really looking at not only what are your clients saying, but what has worked for you specifically. So you're in the client brain bank, you're able to look at this is what your people were saying about your work.
Yeah. And I like a lot of the folks who I work with are marginalized within the marginalized. Like there's this one, I have 2 projects where I'm working with Pacific Islander organizations, and Pacific Islanders just get lumped in with Asian Americans, and Asian Americans just get lumped in with BIPOC folks, right? But one thing that I heard when I've been speaking with them is like, no one has validated me like you have. No one has held space for me like you do. No one listens like you do. And for me, I'm like, I'm just listening to you, you know?
It doesn't everybody, but they're telling you like, no, this is out of the ordinary for me. So it started to give you like words to your gifts that you thought you were just being or doing.
Yes.
It's just like you being the way you are.
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful because I really think about how, especially when we are BIPOC, but like daughters of immigrants and first gen, we have an association with like, it's supposed to feel hard, or like hard work is actually what gets you the best results. And so in business, it can show up as gravitating more towards what is hard, or like filling in quote unquote weaknesses, like strengthening a quote unquote weakness, versus going to what feels easy. Because if it feels easy, it's, oh no, it's not real. People don't value this. I didn't actually do anything.
Yeah.
When in reality, in business, it's like the path of least resistance is generally where the biggest opportunities are, because you don't feel like you're trying. You're just like going into a very deep pot of like resources.
Yeah. And even if you're not like taking action towards the hard things, if you're just doing the easy things, there's like a guilt that gets like, that happens, you know, when you're like, oh, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, a guilt that I have released in Reclamation, because I am fully recognizing that I am a B2B person.
Yeah.
I am like, that means that I don't have to be posting on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think about your decision makers aren't on like Instagram, like scrolling. And they're
scrolling. They're not scrolling for, let me find a coach for my team. They're like,
no,
let me turn off my brain at this moment.
No,
right?
This is so important about the way that I think. It's not even just the way that I think about marketing. It's like what marketing actually is. And I think this is something with anyone who comes into Reclamation, is you are going to walk away thinking differently about marketing. Not a platform is just one way of people knowing you exist. That marketing is basically you have a message. and you want that message to get out. So it's like communicating that message and then building relationships. So however you communicate the message and build those relationships could be up to you. You could communicate the message by just being physically in rooms where those decision makers are. So it's like, where are the decision makers? How do you communicate with the decision makers? How do you build relationships with the decision makers? That legit could be zero social media, or your social media can exist to help them vet you. Who is this person? Let me check them out. Or let me go to their website. Let me go to their LinkedIn. They might vet you, but they're not like consuming all your posts. Yeah. So that even in itself, where it's like your people are not like scrolling Instagram, like figuring that out. Tell me like a little bit about like, how has that changed the way that you see marketing and how you've called in clients? Because you, in your success receipts, you talked about what your gift is, that when you perform that gift, or like the way that you've called in clients, that's literally like what's working for you. What has that thing been of like, what has brought you clients?
My thing is relationships.
Yeah.
So the people who I'm working with now,
Yeah.
many of them I've known for a decade in different capacities.
Yeah.
And I have showed up in those relationships and provided value in all those different capacities. And then now I'm like, oh, I'm a coach, and these are the ways that I help people.
Yeah.
And for people who are in my universe, who I've known for a long time, who actually one of them was a funder for me. I was working in a nonprofit and they funded me in the past.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm like, hey, I'm a coach now.
What
like,
does it mean to fund you?
Yeah. So they work at a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And foundations, it's their role. They have a big pot of money, and it's their role to give that money out in a way that's aligned with them.
Okay.
And they usually give that money out to nonprofits.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how did you get access to that when you think about, wait, but I'm not a nonprofit? Like, how did that work?
So that particular relationship started when I was in nonprofit, and then we stayed in touch. And what I did as I was transitioning from role to role, because I knew that person 3 jobs ago. When I was transitioning from role to role, I would send an email out. So I was like, hey, I'm working in DEI and government now.
Yes.
And then, hey, I'm working on Broadway now. And then, hey, I'm working as a coach now.
Okay. Oh, okay. So this is good. I was going to ask you, like, how did you go from working within organizations as a like consultant coach? Because some people might be listening and being like, well, in my last job, I wasn't a consultant or coach, which maybe it's slightly a different path, but like, how did you actually create relationships for your business? Like, how did you essentially go from working within an organization to actually having them as your client? So part of what you mentioned was like keeping in touch with your network and letting them know this is what I'm doing now so that they can connect you. Tell me a little bit about like how that worked. Like, how did your opportunities come to you from past organizations?
So one beautiful thing that's happening right now, and I think it's a result really of kind of the uprisings of 2020, is that yes, there was this kind of like huge increase in like DEI investment, right? Like right after 2020.
Oh, yes.
And now we're seeing particularly staff, like a DEI director or something, like there's a disinvestment in that.
Yes.
But there is continuing investment of funding and organizations that are investing in their existing BIPOC leadership.
Okay.
And so there's coaching and resources that organizations are making available to their people that when I was a nonprofit did not exist.
Okay. So do you think that it went from reactively, I think about like summer 2020, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter movement, companies reactively being like, oh, we need to get our stuff together and hire a DEI? Because I knew a lot of DEI folks around that time, and then they were coming in and doing work, but then realizing some of it was like reactive and they weren't really actually interested in like doing the work long term.
Yes.
And that now what you're seeing is because that's fizzled away, that what's left now is them saying, we're going to invest in our BIPOC leaders and in their support and in their like leadership skills, which is really putting your money where your mouth is, to be like, we actually are investing in them. Yeah. What are you seeing now? Because I think this is like a market opportunity that I think is like important to know, especially if you're like a leadership coach or someone who could develop leaders.
Yes. So I think the people who were already committed pre-2020 are going deeper in their commitment.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And there's actually a report, and I can find it and we can share it with your listeners. There's a report recently that there's actually a decreased interest in leadership among BIPOC folks.
What do you mean?
That there's actually fewer and fewer BIPOC leaders who are going and striving for becoming, for example, like an executive director. There's a decreased interest in that. And the people who are actually wanting to become an ED, for example, an executive director.
Yes.
The reason why they are doing that is not towards a pull of like making a bigger impact, for example.
Yes.
They actually want to go into leadership to correct harms that were done to them or that they have seen.
Oh my gosh, that's such a, when you think about like BIPOC leaders or even just coaches who are people of color, so many of us are coming in to be the person we once needed. That makes sense that in leadership, it's like, if it's not me, it's going to be someone else and better me than someone else because I'm keeping these things in mind or I'm going to advocate for my people. So it's almost, I don't want this for like me climbing the ladder for myself. It's more so about if I have the opportunity, then I'd rather it be me. And wanting to correct. Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah. And all of that is to say that there's huge opportunities right now, right? There's opportunities right now. And who knows, like maybe funding for BIPOC leadership is not going to be the sexy thing in a few years. Who knows? But right now, there's huge opportunity and there's this like deepening, I think, of investment. In particular communities for leadership. And I think the other part of this is like post 2020, we're all thinking about what does sustainability look like in leadership, right? Like we all burnt out in 2020. Right? So many of us burnt out. And the organizations that I'm seeing are ones that started during COVID in response to helping a specific community. And then there were other organizations who they've been around for a long time. And same outcome. There was burnout. And so there's this focus on healing that kind of thing. And I think the healing conversations and sustainability conversations are also ones that I've been having since like 2017 when I first started coaching and doing DEI work. And so, like the work that like executive coaches do or leadership coaches do or even health coaches. Like, I actually trained as a health coach. But the reason why I'm now a leadership coach is that a lot of people's health challenges stem from their work.
That absolutely. That it's almost like you are band-aiding it. Sometimes it's a support, maybe like people's health needs support somewhere else as well, not just in the symptoms of it, which tends to be in the absence of support or them being in leadership positions and work like burning out and all of that and just not having that support. That's so good to just, I feel like it's validating even for me to hear what your experience has been like and like working with orgs to say, the landscape has changed, but like those who are really truly like investing in their people were the ones who always cared. And now they're like deepening that. So it's like, there's a market there for someone who works with people of color who are leaders, even people who are listening and like the work that they're doing, that there's like opportunities beyond social media and selling to individuals and like possibly like how you said, like leadership coaches, health coaches, I would say even like nutritionists, like who knows? It honestly depends. It's what could be like a wellness development, like investment essentially like in your people, which I think is just a different way of thinking about coaching. So I was curious, like we talked a little bit about sort of, you were already doing this work, coming into Reclamation, really seeing like owning the fact that you were a coach for social change within organizations, which helped you not compare yourself, really see that this is like the work that you're doing. And also that like your gift was like building deep relationships and not making that a problem and being like, okay, if I'm going to grow, it means continuing to do that. And then also with even pricing proposals.
Yes.
That's one thing I wanted to touch on is how did you view pricing differently this year as a result of being in the mastermind maybe versus how you were considering it before?
Yeah. So when I went full-time in my business, I sent out an email and I posted on my personal Instagram. I think I posted on LinkedIn saying, hey, this is what I'm doing. And folks who I had worked with in the past were then, we started conversations. I was then invited to some proposals. And
you said you were like sending emails back or wait, some of that again. So it's like you were sending out proposals or you were sending out emails to your folks.
Yeah. So the kind of like model that happened was that the email went out
and it was
then responded
to your network?
To my network.
Okay.
Yes.
So you went out to my
network.
To your network. And
some
then
people within my network then responded and said, hey, my team actually requested a coach for the leadership team or whatever in our last meeting, or it happened.
Yeah.
And
you just had to tell them,
I just had to tell
I'm
them.
a leadership coach.
Yes. Yeah.
It's so funny because people think about this for jobs, right? If you've been laid off, one of the things that is like common knowledge is like, hey, tap your network and just let them know, hey, I'm looking for opportunities that kind of fit this demographic, right? But we don't think about it for our businesses necessarily because it feels like, ugh, I don't know, we just have like thoughts about it. But literally, you went in and were like, hey, this is the work that I'm doing. You pinged your network. And then from that, you were able to get people saying, hey, we're actually looking for something.
Yes. So then the proposal conversation started, and pre-Reclamation and just going full-time in my business, my pricing for my proposals was just like whatever I had capacity, whatever my nervous system allowed me to put. And, and then I'm a person who is like very community centered. And so I like to run my things that I send out into the world by other people. And so I sent my proposal out to 2 friends who are nonprofit consultants.
Okay.
Not coaches, but consultants. And they're like, this is too low.
But they're giving you like some sort of a barometer kind of thing. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. And the reason why I asked consultants was because I wanted them and their view of like people who have submitted proposals and not just coaches. Because at this point, like I had not submitted a proposal to be a coach before.
Yes.
And they were like, Patti, you immediately need to raise your price. This is the baseline. And I'll just say for everyone, like $250 an hour is about the baseline for a nonprofit consultant, even just starting out.
Yeah.
Because there's a recognition that there's other parts of the work that 1 hour of work, for example, for that $250 is not just the hour that you're sitting with them. It's also all of your admin and all of your preparation and all of that.
Yeah.
And when we are scared to list a price like that, then we're doing all of that work for free. And so I just didn't have that kind of thinking back then.
Yes.
And when my friends told me to raise my price, I think I did it to 200 and not even 250. I think I put 150 initially.
Yeah.
But now, and I think I said this earlier, that I have had this experience of really coming into my expert identity and integrating all of my different experiences and knowing that they are relevant, knowing that they are worth the price.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that story of so when like he was like drawing on a napkin and someone asked him like, oh, like how much is that little napkin drawing? And whatever, he says it's like astronomical price.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? Like you did it in 5 minutes? And he's no, it's not 5 minutes. It's like 50 years of expertise.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm like feeling into my Picasso era.
I love that. No, but
and so this
is like
year,
there's no shortcut for that. Like they aren't buying just like your actual time. It's like the impact that you're helping people condense timelines, which is like what we do as consultants and coaches. And honestly, anybody that is in an expertise-based business, you are valuing the expertise, the impact of the expertise.
Yes.
And if your expertise can help somebody accelerate a timeline, even if it's like peace and joy and whatever that is, like you're helping them to do that, that's the value. And if you're helping them do that in a way that it's like you have deeper experience or more, whatever, just like a perspective that you're bringing, that's even more. Even if you don't have as many like years of experience as someone else, that's like valuing it differently. Instead of years of experience, it's impact and like the impact of your expertise.
Right. I mean, for me, it was years of experience. It's just, I wasn't counting it.
You weren't counting it. Yeah. That's one of the things that I remind my clients of like in Reclamation is like giving yourself credit for all your transferable skills and how if you were to think about even lived experience and like a lens that you're bringing into your work to say, if somebody didn't have this, would they coach or support their clients differently? And it's the answer is yes, it's no. When you are serving your client, are you reaching back? Because some people they're reaching back to past mistakes. They're reaching back to the way they were raised. And it depends on the work that you do, but it's no. When you think about like, where did the lessons start? Where did the perspective start? Sometimes the lessons and the perspective started way before we are giving ourselves credit for, where they're like, technically, like I really just started this year, which is why you could honestly be a consultant or a coach and you can start at a different rate because you're looking at there's this need and I am bringing all of this to the table, and it's not to discount that. So it makes sense. But you literally were a coach consultant, like you were integrating that work. But I would imagine as well, like your life also and your perspective is also something that you bring, like when you're helping your clients.
Yes. One of the biggest experiences that I bring to it is that I worked at a nonprofit for many years. Yeah. I was there for 4 years and we had 4 executive transitions, meaning we had 5 executive directors in 4 years. Imagine how destabilizing that can be.
So if you're able to relate to them in that way, to be like, because I've done this, I've been through this before, I can imagine you're able to empathize more with the impact of having like leadership constantly like changing hands. Yes. I think that makes sense. It's what's all your transferable skills? I'm just thinking if anybody's listening, if there's work that you're doing now and you're telling yourself like you don't have as much experience or you're comparing yourself around someone who quote unquote started before you, is that actually true? Because if you're thinking of like all of the things you're reaching, you're going back into the recesses of your mind and your life and all of that, like you're probably pulling a lot more than you realize in terms of that.
And it's what are the things that you've been through? Not just what have you accomplished, but what are the things that you've survived and like,
absolutely,
you know, what are the things that you made it through?
Yeah, that's what people pay for. It's like that perspective. I think about like even things that I've been through in my life or a lesson, let's say that took me 10 years to learn, how that would have changed if one person that I knew was like, hey, I went through this experience or this, and like just a little bit of like deterrence, like how maybe like a 10-year timeline could have been like collapsed into less. And it's like, we do that for people all the time, but we don't realize it because we don't actually know what their path would have been like necessarily without us. So I think sometimes it's hard to see the impact of your work, which I think is an important thing, especially for us, like being daughters of immigrants, where we like value hard work or we value like time in the game, whatever, versus we are actually creating whole careers based on like past things that we've done. And essentially like being who we once needed in some capacity.
And there's a really beautiful like validation of yourself that happens when you realize that all of you is relevant, that all of you is helpful, all of you is money making, right? And not to say that we are taking advantage of ourselves in that way, but we are capitalizing on those skills. Like they are actually life skills that some people just like other people didn't have to learn because they didn't have those experiences.
Yeah. And we get to apply, like we get to decide that. Whereas I think we're used to somebody deciding that for us, like with jobs, and they tend to value years of experience. Yeah. So they're like, and it tends to be like doing this exact thing or in this type of role, whatever. So then we start to discount it in different ways as a result of that.
It's a reclamation, if you will, of our experience and our expertise.
It really is. For anyone who's listening, who's thinking like, could I coach within organizations? Give us maybe some examples of people who could be good fits for coaching within organizations, and what is one thing that they can do to test out the waters of whether there's opportunities there?
Yeah, I will say one thing that I learned in my coaching training is that how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Okay.
And so if you are having, like I said earlier, health challenges, and that health challenge is connected to your work, then a health coach would be absolutely great to work within an organization where there's burnout and stress.
That makes sense.
If you have experience with managing teams, then like management is such an important skill. Going from like doer to leader, that jump is such a big one. So like that kind of, that's a big need that I'm seeing in leadership coaching, executive coaching.
That makes sense. And I think the specification of leadership could look a lot of different ways. So it's like leadership for going from individual contributor to team manager, then leadership in different capacities. So that's okay. So health coaching, leadership coaching for managers, leadership coaching for leadership skills. Okay. What else have you seen?
I've seen folks who help people to envision, like people who are like clarity coaches or like vision coaches. Those are great for people or for the leaders of organizations who are more in the visionary role.
Yeah.
Because you get to be like a sounding board for what is possible within that organization.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to be a coach within organizations.
Yeah.
And I say organizations and not corporate because I've actually never worked with corporate.
Yeah.
But I work with
corporate
small
is
businesses.
Organizations as well. So I feel like any large business or business organization that has like a lot of people working within it, essentially. So it's like any sort of like company, nonprofit organization, startup, corporate, like all of it. They all need support for their people.
Yes,
like
there's opportunity.
Yeah.
In all of that.
Yeah.
And because how we do one thing is how we do everything, if you're having a challenge at work, it's probably showing up in another part of your life.
This is true. Yeah. No, it is, because if you think about like it ripples, even with my leadership clients, like we're coming in and talking about a certain thing. Even my clients who I'm their business coach, we end up talking a lot about their jobs because their jobs are like affecting the energy that they have and the focus that they have and all of that. I was thinking as you were sharing this, change management. So if you are somebody who like helped organizations through change, we also have someone in the mastermind who is a human design expert and a personal brand strategist. And she's also like going into the American market because she works in Latin American market. And it made me think of, these high ranking leaders, their personal brand also is more important for them because they're like outward facing and like all of that. So it made me think of that as an example too of like how you lead through human design or how you present yourself, personal brand, like it starts to matter more for these folks.
Yeah. And for human design for teams, right? Like how do we work together in a way that honors our energies?
That makes sense. Like human design for team.
That's
so true.
Yeah. We have another person who's a therapist, but she also comes from the social justice world and she did conflict resolution.
Yeah.
So that's also a big one, right?
Another one in the mastermind. who's a therapist and she's coming in and serving orgs through that way. One of the things I've done in orgs as well is like emotional intelligence. So it's like looking at like building up EQ skills and there's like tests that you can do within teams. There's so much. And so if someone's listening and they're like, okay, I think this work might be relevant. I'm not sure. Maybe it is. What's something that they can do now that just to test the waters? To just be like, how is there opportunity for me to do something? And maybe it isn't pitching to come in and there's different ways, right? There's workshops. There's also like coaching people one-on-one. Like what's something that they can do just to get started to test the waters?
Yeah, I would say when an organization doesn't have any experience with coaches, probably the easiest is to come in and do a one-time thing, like a workshop or a training. If an organization has an ERG that has like an employee resource group that has a budget for outside speakers. And very often that's like within the corporate space or like even larger nonprofit organizations will have ERGs. Yeah. That's a great way to just get in and start a relationship with folks.
That makes sense. So because they know you. And then also too, sometimes when you do a workshop, individual people learn about what you do and then they may reach out or they say, hey, my team needs this or something. Yeah. That makes sense.
Or you might be able to find an organization that has set aside professional development funds for their executive leaders. Yeah. And in that case, sometimes it's just are we a good fit? Great. Then my organization is going to pay for these funds. And actually on my sales call form, even for one-on-one coaching, I don't advertise one-on-one coaching anymore. Yeah. But on my private coaching form, I have a question that says, do you have professional development funds available to you?
Honestly, that would be a good thing for anyone listening is like, even just to ask that as a question on your intake form. And maybe it's not required to just say, if you work for an organization, do you have professional development funds? And it might be like, yes, no, I'm not sure, because that could still be a thing that they're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah. And then that could be part of the conversation too.
Yeah.
That's so good.
There's so many options. I have so many other ideas that are coming to me because there's folks in the mastermind now who are thinking of podcasting on other people's podcasts. So they're becoming guests. And so the way that they're getting those opportunities is that they're posting on their like Instagrams or whatever and saying like, hey, I would like to be on your podcast. That is something obviously that I did via email, but I could see a coach going online, posting to their Instagram or their LinkedIn to say, hey, I want to start working with organizations. I want to start giving a workshop. Does anyone have a connection or is anyone like a learning and development or whatever
Yes.
leader,
Yeah.
or is anyone looking for this kind of thing? And literally just putting it out into the universe.
Right.
There's so many options for like how to start those conversations.
Yeah. And it actually does mirror, like when I think about visibility, like the very first layer is like the simplest, like lowest hanging fruit, which is essentially like posting, emailing. So posting on LinkedIn, emailing, and then just saying, here's what I do. And here's, let's say, 3 or 4 things that I could speak on. That would apply for a podcast. It would also apply for if you were doing a workshop, because you're doing the heavy lifting for them by saying, here's what I do. And here's some things I can contribute. It's almost like creating 4 products to be like, here's 4 products that you can pull off the shelf that I can deliver to your org, or anything along the lines of this. It's just easy for them to be like, yes, because they don't have to do the mental gymnastics of, I don't know. It's no, I've already created these options. That I feel like can feel cringy for some people to be like, oh, I'm going to reach out. But if you're not pitching to say, do you need a coach? If you're pitching to say, I can contribute this to your organization, that really like hits different, I think.
Correct. And to be honest, like sometimes organizations are looking for a coach.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's true. And I can talk about what those different engagements look like.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, that would be maybe a good question to close on, is just so people can dream differently, right? Like, what are different ways that you could work, or maybe that you have worked with organizations? Essentially, like the different coaching relationships, the different like ways that essentially like services and funds have exchanged hands. Like, what could they look like?
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's 3 that I can think of. So one is that you can be part of a coaching pool.
Okay.
Where you have an organization and they have members, or maybe it's staff.
Yeah.
And then they have brought on a group of basically pre-qualified coaches.
Yeah.
And there's a pool where they'll say, hey, team, you have access to, I don't know, 6 to 10 coaching sessions this year.
Yes.
Here's our list of coaches. See which one of these you want to connect with and do basically a sales call.
Yes.
Without the pricing pitch in that sales call. And then you get matched with those people on the
it's a good way to put it, to be like, it's like being pre-qualified as a coach and already having it in at an organization. And then it's about the people knowing they have the funds and then deciding that they want to work with you specifically out of that pool.
Yes.
How have people gotten connected to coaching pools?
That is a great question.
I know that like in Reclamation, it's really just come about through folks being very visible on LinkedIn, running workshops, and then having somebody attend a workshop and then say, my organization is like we have this coaching pool or something that we're tapped into. So really it's how I've seen it, and is through just folks being visible in spaces where the decision makers typically are, which is on LinkedIn, or unless they go to like events or something like that.
Yeah, it is visibility. And for me, my visibility like gift is around relationships. And so I happen to have relationships with people who were foundations, who then they're funding these nonprofits. But then in addition to the funds, they want to invest in the people. Yeah. And so they offered coaching to their grantees, to the people who are offering grants too. Yes. So for me, it came through a relationship with the actual foundation.
So it's just a good example to show like you could get plugged into a coaching pool just from tapping your network. But we have several people in the mastermind who have gotten into coaching pools, which actually really helped them in like before they got booked out, to create almost this little safety platform of, I can have as many coaching pool clients as I want while they're landing their own one-on-one clients. But just to know that you could book yourself out with coaching pool clients just hits different, especially like when people are trying to quit their jobs or something like that. Because then they know, if I wanted to fill my calendar, I could. And maybe that's not always the case with coaching pools, but I know for some folks it has been. And it's different when you're just like, okay, it's never going to be 0. Like, I know that I can get clients here, and then you can decide to take less. It's such a different way of creating safety in your business too. But it's good to know the relationship. It's like all of that.
There's 2 other ways to have coaching engagements with organizations that I have personally experienced. So one is I reached out, or when I sent my email, I connected with a person who was an executive director of her own company. Her team in their annual meeting requested a leadership coach just to help them with like their leadership and their management, and also just like navigating being new and being people of color in a particular industry that is like mostly white. And so she was looking for a coach to bring on as a almost retainer, like to be on the leadership team. And so that's another way that I'm engaging and being a coach is I'm like the quote unquote in-house coach for an organization. I'm sitting in their leadership meetings. I'm doing one-on-ones. I'm just offering random workshops to the team. So that's another. And then the last is that you can have a discrete kind of like longer term engagement. And so I have two leadership programs that are focused on nourishment, that are focused on renewal and sustainability, personal sustainability in like social change work. And again, that is with a foundation that's created an initiative. Or like the organization has received funding. And rather than distributing individual professional development funds, they created an initiative.
That makes sense. So it's like you get to serve multiple people kind of within this. It's almost like creating a program that is matching up with the needs of organizations. So it's easier for them to bring you in because you have that. So I'm thinking about if coaches are listening and they may actually have like a mini course or like a little mini program or some sort of a thing that they walk someone through, like could that also work for organizations? Possibly. Do you know, this is like last question that I'll ask you because it made me think about this. Do you know how they vetted you? Meaning like maybe if somebody refers you to someone who doesn't know you, do they say, is it just the referral is enough? Or do they say they checked you out some kind of way? Because that I know it works differently than when you're selling to individual, like how they actually vet. Do they want to reach out to you? Has anybody ever told you, I just heard about you from so, and then they just reach out? Or are they like looking you up on LinkedIn or I don't know?
Yeah, for me, they've been quite warm leads. And so in my experience, the referral is enough because it's not actually just a referral. It's I'm partnering with that coach. So I'm actually a subcontractor on some of my work. Although in every single one of these engagements, they've asked me for like my website or my LinkedIn. So I have to give them something. But no one has ever said, hey, I like listened to a podcast that you were on or
This is what makes me think about how like you could have a whole ass business, like a multiple six-figure business, and not in it isn't even your website doesn't even have to necessarily be like the end all be all for like how people vet you, that it could just be like you have relationships with people. And because there's actually fewer people, I think in that way of marketing themselves, essentially, that like those referrals or those connections or those relationships matter so much more because they're not looking at 1,000 people or 100 people. It's just like they're looking for somebody who is vetted or that has a relationship with somebody that they know. It's just such a quieter like arena to be in.
It's like, who have I worked with? Because you're also risking a little bit of social capital when you refer someone like that.
True. Yeah.
Right? Like
it is. It's like a transference of trust.
Yes, exactly.
So it's like their reputation is on the line. It's just like a different way of thinking of getting in the door. Of maybe even where they're not looking any other way. They're just, I think about how visibility and relationship, like reputation, gets you access to opportunities that aren't available to the public. Like they're going to be invitation only. They're going to be like, we want to reach out to you. Or it's like the way that they vet you is going to be like so much different than like just anybody. So
even in the job market, right? They say that there's like this hidden job market and that, what is it? 90% of jobs never get posted. I forget what the stat is.
At a certain level too, like the higher level opportunities aren't actually put out there. They're going to tap their network first. And so are you letting your network know that you do this work?
Exactly.
Which is so important. So I love this. I feel like we got a mini masterclass in just like thinking about business differently from serving orgs, who possibly has the work, who is doing the sort of work that organizations could benefit from, like ways that you could get started, ways to even think about how you can serve organizations. And I want like folks that are listening to know too, especially if you're thinking about the work that you're doing and like the way that your marketing feels like not sustainable, or you just maybe aren't a person that like enjoys being on social media, like thinking about how you could start to like, what are the rooms maybe that you need to be in where business contracts could be part of like your income or part of your work. Because not everybody wants to do that. But I just think about how like you get to live a more like private life and you get to just serve people and organizations without it feeling so much like front and center, like hosting. Such a good example for everybody. How can folks like just connect with you, even if they wanted to send you a message, whether it's like on LinkedIn or where? Let people know how they can reach out to you.
Yeah. So I'm Patricia Dayleg on LinkedIn and malayame.com is my website. You can go on there and sign up for my email series that goes out every week. It's called A Sunday Kind of Love.
I love that.
As in the Etta James song, like nourishing ourselves on Sunday and allowing that love to take us through the week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Connect with me there.
Yes. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate you. And we're just everything that you shared with us today, I feel like it's just like opening up another world for everybody. And we're grateful you're in the information.
Thank you so much for having me.